In the past 12 months alone, over 120 towns and cities in the US have lost tens of thousands of jobs. The once bustling neighborhoods are now silent like ghost towns in broad daylight. And this isn't just a story from somewhere far away. It's creeping into familiar places, where you used to shop, drink coffee, and take your grandchildren for weekend walks. If this place collapses, what will happen to your community? What's causing so many American towns to fall apart so quickly? This isn't just an economic issue. It's a series of underlying factors that are silently eroding the heart of America. Today, we'll take a look at 10 places in the US that are deteriorating the fastest, and why where you live could be next. And when you realize it might be too late to save the very place you call home. A small note is that the video content is based on factual reports, news, and reviews from various sources, and does not serve financial purposes or investment recommendations. Let's start with the first location, a place that was once the pride of American industry. Detroit was once called the Steel Heart of America, the place that created roads packed with new cars, where the American dream was forged from steel and sweat. But today, if you stand in the middle of a neighborhood here, you'll wonder, is this still the Detroit I used to know? In just a few decades, Detroit lost over 60% of its population, from nearly 1.8 million people down to only about 600,000. To put it into perspective, out of every 10 houses, as many as 6 are vacant or demolished. In some areas, house prices have plummeted to just 1/10 of the price in other major cities. At night, many streets are plunged into darkness because the deteriorating street lighting system is no longer regularly repaired. It seems the collapse of the traditional automotive industry has left a huge void. When factories close, tens of thousands of jobs disappear. Young families seek opportunities elsewhere, leaving behind an aging community with limited livelihood options. Infrastructure built to serve millions is now redundant and deteriorating rapidly. An elderly woman who has lived here her whole life recounted, "In the old days, every Saturday night, the whole neighborhood would gather to barbecue, and the children would run around playing in the yard. Now, I only hear the sound of the wind whistling through the empty window frames, and sometimes the sound of cars whizzing by as dusk falls." Her story is not just nostalgia, it is the shared sigh of thousands of Detroit residents. What's scary is that Detroit isn't a rare case. If a city as powerful as Detroit can decline, what's to stop this scenario from repeating elsewhere? That question made many people look back at their own community. Detroit is now like a giant tree that once shaded the entire forest, but its roots have rotted from within. The leaves are still there, but they don't have the vitality they used to. And if not cared for, the entire trunk will lean. Have you ever been to Detroit? Is its image in your memory similar to what's happening today? Please share your story in the comments section. And if you think Detroit is a special case, just wait until you see Gary, Indiana, a place that was once the steel machine of America, now incredibly empty. Gary was once the steel heart of America, providing materials for industries ranging from automobiles and construction to railroads. But today, the city's population has decreased by more than half, from over 175,000 people to less than 70,000. Many neighborhoods in Gary have vacancy rates of up to 30 to 35%, making them ghost towns in the middle of the 21st century. A man who worked for 30 years in a steel mill in Gary shared, "The day I got this job, my father said, 'You'll be set for life.' I believe you. But just 20 years later, the factory closed and there was nothing left to hold on to in this entire neighborhood." What ultimately led Gary to this ironic situation? Perhaps importing cheap steel from abroad and automation are causing factories to lay off workers en masse. And then, as the steel industry declined, the economic flow stopped. Shops, restaurants, and movie theaters closed in a domino effect. Young families leave to find work, leaving the community to age rapidly. If Detroit was a victim of change in the automotive industry, then Gary is the clearest demonstration of what happens when a city is dependent on a single industry, and when that industry collapses, everything falls apart. Gary is not just the story of a small city in Indiana. This is a warning to any place that places its entire economic faith in a single pillar. If that pillar wobbles, the entire community roof will collapse faster than you think. Gary today is like a steel furnace that has gone cold. The surface remains, but the heat that once sustained thousands of families has vanished, leaving behind a cold void. And you? Have you ever lived in an industrial town? Do you remember the moment it started to change? Please share in the comments. Your story might help others realize what's happening where they live. And if Gary makes you wince, brace yourself, because the next stop, Flint, Michigan, not only faces economic challenges, but also a nationwide water crisis that has shaken the country. If Detroit or Gary is the story of giant machines that have stopped working, Flint carries a different kind of sadness. The sadness of water droplets. The place that once fed tens of thousands of workers now causes residents to fear turning on the tap in their own homes. The lead-contaminated water crisis that erupted in 2014 was not just a technical incident. It had a strong impact on the already fragile trust of the people. Despite many years passing, thousands of families still don't dare to drink tap water. For them, a glass of water from the kitchen tap is no longer a convenience, but a question mark about safety. It is estimated that Flint has lost nearly half of its population since 1960. The poverty rate reached 38%, nearly 3 times the national average. The median house price is around $35,000, so low that in many other cities, that amount would only be enough to buy a new car. These numbers are not just statistics. They are the answer to the question, why many families don't come back. The collapse of the automotive industry has cost tens of thousands of jobs. The already outdated infrastructure system was not upgraded in a timely manner. And when the water crisis occurred, it became the final blow, not only causing property values to plummet, but also eroding trust in the government's ability to protect the community. A resident shared, "I never thought I'd have to teach my grandchildren how to boil water before drinking it. We live in America. But in Flint, that's normal now." The words sound light, but they are a bitter confession from someone who has witnessed their town fall from pride to unease. If Detroit lost jobs, Gary lost the steel industry, then Flint lost the most fundamental thing, the belief that even basic needs would be met. You can accept living in a place with economic difficulties, but when even drinking water makes you afraid, the feeling of attachment turns into a feeling of abandonment. Flint today is like a cracked glass. It still holds its shape, but every drop of hope leaks out each day, and nothing can stop it unless it's repaired at the root. Do you think this only happens in Flint? If the water supply system where you live experiences a major breakdown, do you believe it will be handled quickly and transparently? Please share your thoughts. Your story might help others realize what's happening around them. And if you think only old industrial cities are in decline, let's see how the once glorious travel paradises are now quietly disappearing from America's map of prosperity. Do you think Atlantic City, a legendary tourist destination, will never fade? What's coming will make you rethink everything. Atlantic City once welcomed millions of visitors annually, earning the nickname the Red Light District of the East Coast. But currently, this number has decreased significantly. Famous casinos like Revel and Trump Plaza have closed, leaving giant concrete blocks standing desolate by the sea. Along the boardwalk, many souvenir shops and fast food restaurants have also closed permanently. In less than 10 years, Atlantic City casino revenue has declined by over 40%. The city's population is constantly declining, with a poverty rate of nearly 30%, twice the average for the state of New Jersey. Some areas near the center have crime rates 3 to 4 times higher than other coastal tourist regions on the East Coast. It's ironic that a resort paradise now makes many visitors feel uneasy walking the streets after sunset. It seems that strong competition from neighboring states like Pennsylvania and New York, which have already legalized casinos, has led to a sharp decline in visitors. The city's economy depends almost entirely on tourism and gambling. When the flow of visitors decreases, all related industries also falter. Rising living costs, unstable seasonal employment, and the city's mounting public debt have created significant obstacles to recovery efforts. A woman who used to work as a server at a restaurant in the Boardwalk area recounted, 10 years ago, weekends were fully booked and customers lined up waiting for tables. Now there are only a few lonely customers left, and we're closing earlier than ever. Atlantic City isn't an old factory town unaffected by the steel or auto industries. It's a tourist icon. If even paradises can fade, then any community that depends on a single source of livelihood is facing a similar risk. Atlantic City today is like an abandoned roulette table. The wheel is still there, but the spin of fortune stopped long ago. Have you ever been to Atlantic City? What do you see the most obvious changes in? The landscape, the people, or the atmosphere? Please share in the comments section. And if you think a vibrant beach city like Atlantic City is a sad example, just wait until you see Lake Charles, Louisiana, where an entire tourist center was almost completely wiped out in just a few days of storms. There are places you believe will always be there, always beautiful, always welcoming. But then, delving into reality, things were far from what was imagined, and Lake Charles is one of them. In August 2020, Hurricane Laura, the strongest hurricane to ever hit Louisiana, swept through Lake Charles with winds reaching 150 miles per hour. In just a few hours, over 90% of the city's buildings were damaged to varying degrees. Many lakeside hotels, restaurants and casinos, which were the city's cash cows, were almost completely destroyed. Estimated damage amounts to $19 billion. More than 35,000 people had to leave their homes after the storm. Just a year later, another strong storm and historic flood struck again, bringing the recovery process almost back to square one. If Atlantic City lost tourists over time, Lake Charles almost lost them all, overnight. Lake Charles is heavily reliant on the tourism and lakeside service industries. When hotels, resorts, and entertainment venues were affected, it led to a cash flow shortage. Many small businesses don't have enough capital to recover, and tourists are shifting to other destinations, where the infrastructure remains intact. The repetition of consecutive natural disasters has eroded people's confidence that this place will be safe for long-term investment or attachment. A lakefront cafe owner, choked with emotion, recounted, "The storm swept away everything I had. I set up a small takeaway coffee stand again, but tourists are now few and far between. I love Lake Charles, but I don't know if I have the strength to stay." Lake Charles is perhaps a reminder that not all decline comes from economics or industry. Sometimes, a natural event can wipe out an entire local economy in an instant, leaving behind cracks that cannot be measured in numbers. Lake Charles is like a brilliant gem that has fallen to the bottom of a lake. It's still there, but obscured by mud and debris, and few can still see the light as it once was. Have you ever lived or traveled in a place that was permanently changed by a natural disaster? Do you think the community can truly recover, or will it have to start over somewhere else? But the story doesn't just stop at natural disasters. There are resort paradises that never experience storms, yet still lose their luster, like Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where changes in travel habits have shaken this seaside town. There are no storms, no earthquakes, and no water crises either. And yet, Myrtle Beach, one of America's most famous beaches, is losing its luster. For decades, Myrtle Beach has been an American summer icon, welcoming millions of visitors each year. But in recent years, the number of visitors has decreased significantly. Many hotels, restaurants, and entertainment venues were forced to cut staff or close down. Even peak season room rates have decreased, but they still can't fill up. The number of international visitors decreased by over 25% compared to 5 years ago. Many coastal resort real estate projects have been frozen indefinitely. Some neighborhoods near the sea are reporting the highest vacancy rates for shops in 20 years. If Myrtle Beach was once the top choice for summer vacations, many families are now opting for newer destinations or staying home. A small shop owner on the main street confided, "I've been here for over 30 years and used to see long lines of customers outside the door. Now, I spend more time looking at the sea than at the customers. The reason the city is in its current state is likely not due to a natural disaster, but rather a change in travel habits. Young tourists are seeking out less crowded destinations. Rising airfare and food costs are leading many families to choose staycations. Additionally, there is strong competition from emerging tourist destinations in Florida, Texas, and the Caribbean. Myrtle Beach failed to refresh its image and tourism products, gradually losing its original position. Myrtle Beach was not swept away by a hurricane, nor did it collapse due to a major economic shock. It's losing its position because it's letting itself become outdated, while the world around it is changing too quickly. Myrtle Beach is like a beautiful summer photograph left in the sun for too long. The colors are still there, but they've faded, and it's hard to remember how vibrant it once was. Do you think Myrtle Beach still has a chance to return to its glory days? Has the time come for this place to change completely in order to survive? The cities we just passed through are perhaps a reminder of changes that happen too quickly or are beyond our control. But that's not all. Even more thought-provoking things await us in places that were once the pride of America. And you won't believe it. The names that are coming up were once considered untouchable icons. California, the promised land of the American dream. And Stockton was once the most vivid example, a place people came to start a new, richer, brighter chapter. In the 1990s and 2000s, Stockton experienced a population boom and real estate prices skyrocketed. Many families believe that buying a house here is a golden ticket to entering the middle class. But the bursting of the real estate bubble in 2008 turned Stockton into a symbol of the collapse. In 2012, Stockton became the largest city in the United States to declare bankruptcy. Thousands of homes were foreclosed. At one point, the foreclosure rate in Stockton was the highest in the country. Not stopping there, the public debt reached billions of dollars, forcing the city to cut police, fire, and community services. The golden dream only took a few years to turn into a white-knuckled nightmare. A former library employee recalled, "When I received the keys to my first house in Stockton, I thought I had won. But just a few years later, they lost their home, their jobs. I never thought the California dream would be so short." Stockton's rise before 2008 was like a castle built on thin sand. Growth was almost entirely driven by the real estate bubble. Houses sprang up quickly, prices rose every month, and people believed that value would continue to climb forever. When the flow of funds from real estate was strong, local governments also spent lavishly, expanding public services, investing in infrastructure, and raising employee salaries, as if those revenues would never run out. But then, the 2008 recession hit like a tidal wave, sweeping away both the housing market and tax revenue. It was at that moment that pre-existing financial weaknesses, dependence on a single source of income, and imprudent budget management were fully exposed. And Stockton fell freely. Stockton is neither an old industrial town nor a resort area. It used to be the symbol of the California dream, where people thought failure was impossible. And perhaps it was that very fact that made Stockton's fall more painful, because it proved that no icon is inviolable. Stockton is like a magnificent sandcastle on a California beach, built in the golden sun, but with just one big wave, it all disappears without a trace. Do you think the real estate bubble is quietly returning in some other cities? Will there be a new Stockton in the next few years? And if you think Stockton's bankruptcy was a big shock, just wait until you get to St. Louis, Missouri, a city that was once the jewel of the American Midwest, but is now facing crime statistics that have the entire nation concerned. St. Louis was once the shining jewel of the American Midwest, a bustling hub of commerce, rich culture, and a close-knit community. For decades, St. Louis was considered the gateway to the West, the economic, commercial, and cultural center of the entire Midwest. But in recent decades, the city has lost nearly half its population compared to its peak. Many once bustling neighborhoods have become abandoned areas, with dilapidated houses and plummeting property values. St. Louis consistently ranks among the highest in the nation for per capita violent crime rates. The poverty rate is over 20%, nearly double the national average. Many inner city districts report that over a third of homes are vacant or unoccupied. For many, the fear of insecurity has gradually replaced the sense of pride when mentioning this city. It seems that the industrial recession, particularly in manufacturing and transportation, has cost tens of thousands of jobs. The migration of people to the suburbs or other states has left the remaining population primarily composed of those with limited economic options. Economic and social pressures, combined with long-standing urban management issues, have pushed many neighborhoods into a spiral of instability. Fewer jobs, increased crime, and as more people leave, the community becomes even more hollowed out. St. Louis is not just a city. It was once a model for the development of the Midwest. But now, the name Gateway to the West evokes an image of a door leading to challenges that many other American cities may face if they don't change. St. Louis is like a gem that once shone brightly, but has been covered in the dust of time and is marked by cracks that are difficult to heal. The light is still there, but it's fading, and few can see it as clearly as before. Do you think crime is the main reason St. Louis is in decline, or is it just a symptom of a deeper socio-economic illness? Please share your perspective. And if St. Louis is a warning for major cities, then Birmingham, Alabama will show what happens when a once vibrant industrial and cultural center is left to be erased by time and the market. Birmingham was once called the Magic City, a city that grew rapidly thanks to its iron ore, coal mines, and powerful steel industry. But all miracles eventually fade. In recent decades, Birmingham has gradually lost its position as the industrial center of the South. The steel industry, the economic heart of the city, is shrinking, with many factories closing or moving elsewhere. Trade flows are changing, jobs are being lost, and young people are migrating to more vibrant cities like Atlanta or Nashville. The population is estimated to have decreased by over 20% compared to its peak in the 1970s. Many once bustling neighborhoods now have over a quarter of their homes vacant. The poverty rate exceeds 25%, which is double the national average. Birmingham didn't fall into crisis because of a single shock, but because of dozens of small cuts that lasted for decades. Birmingham doesn't seem to be brought down by an immediate disaster, but by a silent erosion. The global market is shifting, and the local steel industry is losing its competitive advantage. The slow pace of innovation has caused the city to miss out on opportunities in the technology, financial services, and tourism sectors. Deteriorating infrastructure, limited public investment, and the trend of young people leaving are weakening economic vitality. Like a train that once led the way, Birmingham gradually fell behind and was left stranded on the tracks as new trains passed by. Birmingham is perhaps a cautionary tale about the slow death of a community when it loses both economic momentum and lacks innovation. You don't need a storm or a financial bubble to send a city into decline. Sometimes just standing still while the world is moving is enough. Birmingham is like a beautiful antique clock that has stopped ticking. The exterior still retains its elegance, but inside, the needle has stopped moving. Do you think the rapid pace of change will lead many other cities to meet the same fate as Birmingham? And is the city you live in slowing down compared to the rest of the world? And finally, Buffalo, New York, where harsh weather, a fragile economy, and a wave of migration have combined into a perfect storm, plunging the entire city into a downward spiral from which few thought it could escape. Buffalo, a city located on Lake Erie, was once the commercial, industrial, and cultural center of the Northeast. A place where summer is vibrant and autumn is breathtakingly beautiful. Buffalo was once a major transportation and manufacturing hub, benefiting from its strategic location near the Great Lakes and the Erie Canal. But as heavy industries moved out or disappeared, the local economy lost its pillar. Unlike other industrial cities, Buffalo faces the additional challenge of nature. According to statistics, the population here has decreased by over 50% compared to its peak in the 1950s. In the winter of 2022, Buffalo experienced its worst deadly blizzard in 40 years, which disrupted the entire city. Many neighborhoods report vacancy rates above 20%, and property values remain stagnant even though other areas are experiencing strong growth. Here, a winter doesn't just paralyze the streets, it also slows down the economic heartbeat. Buffalo's economy, which was heavily reliant on heavy industry, has disappeared. The wave of young people migrating to warmer and more dynamic cities. The less than pleasant weather also became one of the factors hindering new investment and year-round tourism. Buffalo was likely not knocked down by a single shock. It's worn down day by day by both the market and the climate, until its resilience becomes fragile. Not everyone can pack up their belongings and seek a new life. For many people, Buffalo is not just an address, it's their whole life. But that love also has to strive to survive amidst the snow and wind and cold economic figures. Buffalo is like a lighthouse in a snowstorm, standing strong through the years, but its light is gradually dimming, and there's a risk of it being completely obscured if the storm never clears. From Detroit to Buffalo, we pass through empty streets, silent factories, deserted beaches, and frozen harbors. Each city, each community is a story about rising, flourishing, and then gradually fading. But this isn't just a story of the past. It could be a warning for the present. Because no place, no matter how wealthy or iconic, is immune to the power of time, the market, and the changes we don't notice until it's too late. We'd like to hear the story from you. Is the city you live in changing in a way that worries you? Have you ever witnessed a thriving community decline? Please share in the comments. Who knows, your story might help someone realize what's happening around them. If you found this video insightful and want to continue following in-depth stories about socio-economic issues in the US and around the world, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That helps me continue to deliver quality content and you won't miss any stories. This video is based on publicly available data, information from reports, and reliable sources, combined with the content creator's personal perspectives and analysis. The purpose is to provide information, stimulate reflection and discussion, not to make absolute claims or attack any individuals, organizations, or locations. All data and images are presented to illustrate and encourage the audience to learn more from various sources.